It's Emil. It's Emil Guillermo. Emil, I'm up to you. Hi, everybody. It's Friday. Thank God it's Filipino. That was an infamous T-shirt at one time. It still is. Thank God it's Filipino. Thank God it's Friday, right? TGIPH, Emil? No, Filipinos with an F. Come on. TGI. It's Friday. This is show number 144. We've done 144 of these. Hey, how are you? This is Emil Amok's Takeout, where we ask the question, what does an Asian American think? Or WDAAAT. What that? What does an Asian American think? It's our acronym. Hey, look, we fill in the void. Thank you for joining me. We're here Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. to whenever. 2 p.m. Pacific live. We go live because it's dangerous, because that's what we do. When you do a talk show, we're like Suni Lee on the balance beam, right? With the New York Times on one hand and the Washington Post on the other, and maybe the Wall Street Journal, balanced on our head. And we're just scanning the news. I've been a journalist for some time, TV, print, web, columnist, did talk shows in DC and Sacramento, San Francisco, and the web, specifically Facebook, is a democratizing tool. Oh, okay. So they've got this little whitelisting problem that the Wall Street Journal has exposed. Okay, that's a little thing. But because of Facebook, I put this out on Facebook Watch. We're live. And, if we got 5 minutes before 2 o'clock, this is our lanyap section. This is like where we get the kinks out before we do our yoga poses. Anyway, hi. Welcome to the program. We're going to talk about a lot of things today. If you checked in early, thank you for checking in early. Because you get the lanyap where we talk about stuff. And today, let's see. It's supposed to show the stuff that we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about small feet. They found some small feet in New Mexico. Are they Asian feet? And this is the thing. This may be the turning point that maybe the first Americans or the first people to North America were Asians. I know we all believe that, right? That they were Asians, but we'll get into the story. I'm going to talk about Harvard Unity because, Asian Americans care about Harvard. They care about Harvard enough to be used by white conservatives to sue Harvard. That's how much they care about Harvard. So we're going to talk about that today. And besides, a big conference of Asian Americans from Harvard, Asian American, or actually people of color, Black, Indigenous people of color, an alliance of alums from Harvard together. It's huge. And I'm going to be there tonight. And there's going to be, they say, about 2,000 people registered. Will they all show up for the story slam? Right? I tell the story tonight. We don't know. But this is my little warm up to that. That's coming up later on this evening. Haiti, or actually really the Haitian migrants by way of Latin American, apparently they're all out of Del Rio, Texas. They got them in buses. They got them in planes going back to Haiti. And Mayorkas, the HHS guy, was out there in front of the cameras saying, hey, it wasn't immigration. We got him on health issues, which, I said yesterday, why are we even deporting these people, right? It's like, hey, the toilet is bad in Del Rio, Texas. We're going to send you to an even worse toilet in Haiti. But apparently some people were able to stay in the United States and have hearings, but it's a mess. But Biden administration's finally owning up to it, and it's still a mess, and immigration is still the overriding issue. Anyway, that's coming up. And then we're going to do our news scan while we still have some time. Let's go scan the news. I mean, we should scan the news, and I'll tell you why. This is in the New York Times. Here. On the top of the webpage in the New York Times, Huawei executive accepts deal freeing her. Case strained U.S.-China ties. Meng Wanzhou is returning to China in exchange for admitting some wrongdoing in sanctions violations case. This is important, and you see her leaving a a home. She's got her little bag, and she's got an ankle bracelet, and it's not a fashion statement. But now she's free. This The Times says releasing Ms. Meng could signal a more conciliatory approach in Washington's stance toward Beijing under the Biden administration. It could be. What does this mean to Asian Americans? Because this is kind of the show for the AAPI and the AAXs. Although you don't have to be Asian to get any of this, because we're looking at the news from an Asian perspective. What you need to be concerned about is, especially when they show a picture of Meng Wanzhou so prominently on the web, you got to worry about what people think about, people do not make the distinction between Asian and Asian American. They don't. In fact, all the Asian Americans in most people's mind tend to be Chinese. Hence, you see this woman, Meng Wanzhou, walking away with an ankle bracelet, and there's some people out there who are saying, "Oh, there's that model minority. You got to be on guard with that." I mean, this is a thing that we need to be reminded every time. We got to be reminded when they report these kind of matters, because every image, every story ends up affecting the community. When just go back to the spy cases, right? With Sherry Chen, who worked for NOAA, and all the how that impacted how people viewed all the Asian American, sometimes born here, but sometimes Asian American by way of immigration, how they were looked at slightly askance because of accusations that some people were stealing government secrets. Here's corporate secrets. This is an extension of all that. Go back to 21 years ago. Go back to Wenho Lee, the Wenho Lee case. People, you got to keep reminding people of this, because if you don't remind people of the Wenho Lee case, go ahead, Google it. If you forget about Wenho Lee, he was the Los Alamos scientist who was suspected of espionage and, stealing top secrets, helping China make nuclear weapons. Wenho Lee was Taiwanese. He wasn't helping the mainland. Of course, a little detail that some people missed out. But the upshot of that case is that there were a lot of government leaks from FBI folks leaking to the Times. This is why the Times doesn't have an exactly sterling record on this sort of thing. And the Times reported Wenho Lee's case without humanizing him. That was their big mea culpa that they ran on the front page of the Times back, like I said, 2020 or 2003, I believe it was. And, the case happened around 2000. But by the time there was a trial, and the Times really had to make this huge retraction on page one. It's like 2003. So you got to look at these sort of things. And here's this Meng Wanzhou, leaving her house. Looks like a nice little, Westchester County kind of house, right? In the suburbs. Well dressed, except for that gaudy ankle bracelet that looks like it was government issued. They probably could have done without that, right? I mean, that was like a little stab there. All right, it's in the New York Times, the front page now, on the web page. But that's what's live. That's what they considered to be top news. Also, above the folder, above your laptop screen, on the Times, Chris Cuomo sexually harassed me. I hope he'll use his power to make change. A kind of expose by an opinion section. So I don't know. That's what they think is important. They're putting that up there. Could this COVID wave reverse the U.S.'s economic recovery? That's on the left side of the page. You got to think about this. The Fed is thinking about raising interest rates. If they're going to tighten up again as opposed to loosening up. I think we're not done yet. But I think people are seeing, oh, hey, look, the corporates are doing better. This is kind of democratic trickle down. Small businesses aren't doing well. A lot of people are still hurting. A lot of people are saying, look, it's going to take 10 years for our community to recover. I think it's kind of premature to say, could this COVID wave reverse the US's economic recovery? Oh, here's the thing. Could this COVID wave, meaning if we get hit again, it's going to, I think we're confused. I think we see these mixed signs that, oh, companies are doing well, but it may be a false sign because we're not out of this yet. We got the vaccine approval for people, not just 65 and over. We got a booster shot for people who are healthcare workers. That's good. Okay. And then, of course, you've been hearing about the story about the Republican review of the Arizona vote fails to show a stolen election. In fact, there were 99 more votes for Biden, I think, or Biden got more votes in the recount. So, and yet, are we going to see anything change? I don't think we are. Washington Post has, the Post, it's always different, between you compare the two. Biden administration struggles to fix supply chain before big holidays. Okay, they're thinking about you. They want to make sure you get your Christmas gifts. They talk about the Arizona case. And then here's what I was mentioning about the CDC. CDC director defends decision to endorse booster shots for adults in high-risk jobs. Originally, that was just a decision to go 65 and over. But now they're saying if you're in a high-risk job, emergency type hospital, those kind of frontline workers, I think that makes sense. I think that makes perfect sense for them to get boosters. Oh, here's something else. Senator Grassley, oldest GOP senator at 88, announces he will seek another term. That is like power. You don't want to give up power. But here's the thing about, because I know there are a lot of young Asian Americans in particular who want to come in and like kick the representative in their district who might be in their 70s or 80s, who've been there for more than 20, 30 years. Here's the thing about when you're an old representative or an old legislator, you have seniority, and that's where the power is. And Grassley, he's the oldest GOP senator at 88. He's announcing another term. My God, he could, well, I don't want to say he's going to die in office, but that's power. He likes the power. And his constituents should like the fact that he has power. His constituents in Iowa, for goodness sakes. But a lot of people say, is there not a young Republican out there who Trump would support to like get Grassley out? I think Grassley has pretty much played it down the middle, if not maybe on the Trump side. Let's see, what else is on the news? All migrants have been cleared from encampment in Del Rio, Texas, Homeland Security Secretary says. The big thing about that, like I said, is that they were talking about how the migrants, right, weren't being deported because of immigration laws. It was some provision in health, the health statutes, and so I don't know. Well, let's see what happens. I think the bigger picture for Asian Americans on this is that we need to see what this means in terms of the broader question of how are we going to reform immigration? How are we going to make sure that our DACA recipients, get their, pathway to citizenship? There's a lot of issues, much bigger than just the Haitians, but the Haitians, Del Rio, plus all the other people at the border, They're making it almost impossible for a comprehensive immigration deal to pass. And that was one of the hopes that a Biden administration would do that. But not quite. It's not going to happen. Anyway, so this is, as I said, I call it the the micro talk show of the AAPI or the AAXs, because in everything I talk about comes from this Asian American perspective. I'm an Asian American, so I'm going to talk about these things as it pertains to us, because you're not going to hear this stuff from our perspective on talk shows, and I, I mentioned this idea. What does an Asian American think? What does an Asian people don't know? They just say, "Oh, Asian Americans just bow their heads." They just bow their heads and say nothing because what do they know, right? They're just the model minority. They're just good. Follow them, right? Uh no, no, we care about these things. And a lot of it, we're such a diverse group. It depends on like when you got here, when your parents got here. Are you naturalized? Are you born here? What's your education? What's your income status? So race, class, everything. You're going down the line. The one thing this week that really got me about what the Asian Americans think, because you're not going to hear this very, very much from people. You're going to hear a lot of people say, "Oh, hey, Shang-Chi, #1 movie, 300 million worldwide. It's great, great, great." I heard a woman who is a Pacific Islander say, "Hey, yeah, Shang-Chi's cool. We're visible. That's cool." Visibility doesn't mean power. Visibility in the movies doesn't mean no one's going to listen to you. And that was kind of sobering because there is a movement to try to say, "Hey, we've arrived. We arrived when Fresh Off the Boat was making waves as a primetime series. We were making waves when the very first Asian American sitcom, right? All American Girl, right? Margaret Cho. We thought we were making these things aren't waves; they're impermanent. Just one of the mystical Buddhistic things that you learn. Hey, impermanence. And so you think, "Oh, Shang-Chi, that's cool. We're gonna make it." No. This Pacific Islander was, I was hearing her talk. She said, "Visibility doesn't equal power." Remember that if your friends say, "Hey, let's go see Shang-Chi this week." I haven't seen it yet because I'm not going to the movies yet. I mean, not in that venue. I'll see something, at home. Try to watch the Clint Eastwood movie the other day. I got like a third in. So anyway, what does an Asian American think? We fill in the void. This show fills in the void. Okay. Uh, get back to some of the topics we were going to talk about. We were going to talk about small feet. I don't know. So I say small feet because if you saw the front page of the Wall Street Journal, you saw these feet. I don't know how big the feet are. I mean, I'm even looking online at the feet that they're human feet, but I don't know, size 8, size 9. I don't know. They look like they could be Asian American feet, but they're not. They're not Asian. They can't be Asian American feet because at the height of the last ice age, they're saying that there are these people. They look like children and teenagers who are walking around a muddy lakefront, which is now known as New Mexico. Sounds like Breaking Bad. That part of New Mexico. Uh, According to the Wall Street Journal article, Robert Lee Hotz's article, crossing paths with mammoths, giant ground sloths, and extinct canine species known as dire wolves. This is 23,000 years ago. All of this unearthed in the White Sands National Park. And it gives this insight about when humans first came to the Americas. The significant thing is that this is about 10,000 years older than everything else that we thought before. And can we believe this? It was in the journal Science. Journal Science, yeah, it's all right. You can believe that, I guess. But what it means is those footprints can't be Asian, can they? Because before 13,000 years ago, right, we thought, oh, well, people came, they came across the continent, right, on an ice-free land bridge from Asia, or they came by sea along the Pacific coast from Africa. And so they're either Asian or they're african. And then some people are saying, hey, look, well, it's all speculation. I tell my wife, who's Anglo, I say, hey, God, Asian Americans are feeling bad because maybe the first Americans aren't Asian. And she said, oh, it's all speculation. It is all speculation. But now these footprints, 21 to 23,000 years old. I mean, they found like 61 of these trackways. And it looked like it was like children and adolescents. This is like, I don't know, some kind of pre-ice age, like, or where were Peter Pan's group, the Lost Boys or something? Oh, well, let's be fair, they could be girls too. But that's interesting, right? And the people there said very normal feet. They were very normal looking feet. There were, it says, prehistoric feet that left the tracks appear to have been flat, which might have been caused by a lifetime of walking barefoot. I'm having problems with my feet these days from standing all the time. But anyway, look, I just think it's important to talk about this because, right? We've always said, hey, it's the Asian feet, right? They came across the land bridge, and then the other people coming up the coast, from Africa. So we have Africa, Asian, and that would be kind of cool if we're all one, right? But now there are these kids, these adolescents walking around in New Mexico. Oh, thousands of years before Breaking Bad. I don't think they found a car wash near the footprint. They were going after sloths and woolly mammoths. And I don't think they really needed a car wash back then. So interesting, don't you? It's just kind of interesting. So who are these people? Who was here before? Who are the truly indigenous before the Ice Age? About 13,000 or 10,000 years before. And anyone thought? Anyway, something to ponder. You bring it up in the weekend, win a bar bet, say, hey, they found these feet. Are they your feet? And then check out it's a good conversation starter. Next topic, Harvard Unity. Harvard Unity. This is Unity weekend for Harvard. I got in a big argument with a friend last night who said, oh, you Harvard types, you just want to distinguish yourself from other people and make yourself superior. No, we don't want to make ourselves superior. He said, yeah, because, you put that distinction and it's the elites. You elites, you guys are disgusting. It's un-American. It's not un-American. This is American. Oldest college, right? But there is a form of elitism there. But here's the big deal about this weekend at Harvard. The big deal about this weekend at Harvard is that it's all the Black, Indigenous, people of color alumni associations coming together, a confluence of color, meeting online for the first time. And I was talking to some people and they were saying, people did not have a great time if you're a person of color. The last 50 years, that would include me, the last 50 years has not been good. And considering that before then, they had the KKK at Harvard in 1923, they had cross burnings in 1955. So 50 years going into the late 60s, 70s, you'd think that it would be a much more woke campus, but no. And yet, as an older alum like myself, I'm heartened to see all these people come together and heartened to see that there are so many people of color there, which means one thing. It means that Harvard isn't becoming a public school, but Harvard is diversifying and Harvard is changing. Oops. Harvard is changing, which is positive. Not changing fast enough. It isn't. I mean, is there ethnic studies? Is there Asian studies? Asian American studies? No, there isn't. But at least it's changing so that people of color, we're developing a kind of our own little legacy. We're evolving. We're far from the perfect society over there. And my friend, here's the ironic thing about my friend who argues this elitism point. Where'd he go to school? Columbia. He went to Columbia, which isn't as good as if he said he went to Yale, but just as elitist in a way, Ivy League, right? So, and he's white. So I'm arguing with him saying, look, Harvard's trying. It's not a public school. And I'll admit that I did not have a great time there. And a lot of people of color would have to say, oh, we didn't have a great time there either. Well, it's mixed, but we have that association. And we are part of the evolution of a Harvard that might at some point be better. Why is this important to Asian Americans? It's important to Asian Americans because who is suing Harvard for admissions? Asian Americans. Asian Americans are suing because they feel they've been discriminated against. Who are these Asian Americans? They're Asian Americans who are willing to be used as proxies for white people who are aggrieved by the admission system. That's the truth. That case is now before the Supreme Court. But there are a number of Asian Americans like myself and others who join in with other people of color who say, Harvard's admissions are just fine. Look at the people of color who are part of this community. And it's not perfect, but it has changed the complexion of Harvard for the good. That's the important thing. And my friend keeps saying, look, I'm not trying to spoil your American dream, Emil. Look, but forget you. Just talk about the broader picture of the creation of elitism. And shouldn't these people all go to like city college or community college? And yeah, our education system sucks. But Harvard is trying to be a leader to their came after Stanford in getting more middle class people in and not making tuition be an obstacle to getting into the college. I mean, Stanford was first. I think Harvard then came in. And now there's a deal where, hey, if you are worthy of admission, you will get in. I mean, look, my father made, when I applied, my father was retired on SSI. We got what we needed to get in. I had to work a few more jobs in the summer, but we had what we needed. That was when I went there, and it's even more liberal now in terms of money for students to get a more diversified Harvard. I think that's a critical thing here because the story I like to tell, me and Jeffrey Epstein are in a police lineup. We're both wearing Harvard t-shirts. The question is, the general public has to pick out who graduated from Harvard, me or Jeffrey Epstein. We're both in Harvard t-shirts. I guarantee you, they will pick Jeffrey Epstein all the time. That's right, the late pedophile. They'll pick him all the time over me. And he never stepped foot at Harvard, not as an undergraduate. He wore the t-shirt somewhat well. I don't know. Every picture I saw, he had a Harvard t-shirt. Me, I had a t-shirt I bought from the Coop. But that's the thing. Jeffrey Epstein was guilty of white privilege. That's what we're fighting. And I was trying to tell my friend, look, Harvard's doing its best to diversify, to increase people of color. They have more Native Americans this year, I believe, than compared to recent years. But it's still a struggle. But it's important because ultimately, at some point, if America changes, as the demographers say, it's not going to be white privilege. White privilege is not going to be Jeffrey Epstein's crime. They're going to drop the white. It's just going to be privilege. And then it will be a moral dilemma for people who did go to these schools. What did you do with your privilege? What is the ethical question of having privilege in a society with the inequities we have? Hey, look, I'm not Mr. MBA, Mr. Leverage Buyout. I don't live in a 50 floor, glass tower in Park Avenue. I'm a Filipino guy. What does an Asian American think? Right? Coming to you on Facebook. I just think that in the future, it will be a dilemma. Some interesting conversations, though, yesterday at the kickoff event. They had a thing where they talked about, there was a lot of Asian American representation. Jeff Yang, the writer, his son, Hudson Yang, is a freshman at Harvard this year, which is, the legacy continues. But Celeste Ng, the writer, was there. And Leonard, God, I forgot his name. The guy Franklin Leonard, who started the Blacklist, which is a list of black projects in Hollywood. He was there. And they just talked about what is, how are we going to change things at Harvard? At some point, they're still not the gatekeepers. But what when people of color do become the gatekeepers? And to a degree, the successful ones are. What is their obligation? One of the things they talked about is they said, it's still a matter of there is no room to fail. If you fail, you lose your opportunity, which only fosters more tokenism. So that's still a problem. And mind you, like I said, go back 30, 40 years, we're still talking about these sort of things. Equality, equity, we're still fighting. But it's good to see a group like the Black, Indigenous, People of Color alumni groups coming together at a place like Harvard, because the ideas of what a diverse society should be could very well come out of discussions or from people who were fortunate to be given that opportunity to see, to get a Harvard education. The Unity Conference continues through the weekend. Tonight, Friday night, I speak. I tell a story, a Filipino story. If you go to diverse issues in education, I do a story about what that means. And my big beef is that I had a terrible time at Harvard. Not a terrible time, mixed. But I didn't just graduate with a degree. I graduated with a wound, right? I needed to recover. That's the kind of experience I had. And only recently did I have a sense of, oh, okay, I understand. Mindfulness, meditation helped me. So I taught, and the other thing that helped was I went to school there and I studied Asian American history. I learned about the history of my father there because it was in the stacks. And they don't have ethnic studies. Anyway, once I don't know about, since it's some semi-closed group because it's an alumni thing. When they send me a clip, I will share it on this show. Of course, share it with you. But that's happening tonight. And other talks about everything from the environment to the economy. A productive thing. We got to do it all online. So I guess there won't be any wild carousing and partying. But it's I'm looking forward to tonight. All right. We talked about Haiti, about all you really could say about Haiti. I mean, there's more, but the bigger problem is how this impacts changes in immigration, changes in overall immigration policy for Asian American Pacific Islanders. The news scan, we did our news scan. Hey, that's it. We've done our show for today. Hey, thank you for joining us. Follow me on Twitter at Emil AMOK, EMILAMOK. If you go there, you can find an article where I talk about my dad. We're here Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific Live. We do it live. And lately, I don't know if you've noticed, but I've been putting out a Emil AMOK not live a little later on, a couple hours later. So I'll probably do that over the weekend in case you missed it. There are ways to find our things. You can binge watch the entire week on the weekend. Say, oh, I wish I was live so I can like get out of me. And if you were live now, you can go into the chat on Facebook and say, Emil, and some people have, and some people I just I don't know. They came out of, some people from Salt Lake came out of somewhere to chime in. But okay, so I like to say, be here, bang the gong now. That's a gong, a real Kulintong gong. Next week, a lot of things come up. We're going to talk about this new double album that the Smithsonian's put out, a Kulintong album. That's a gong, an agong, which is like a tambourine type timekeeping piece. We're going to talk about that album that the Smithsonian put out. Great, honoring the great Kulintong legend, Danny Kalanduyan. Next week, that's going to be on Thursday. Don't miss that. Check out my other stuff at emilguillermo.media, also at amok.com. Let's see, replays also seen there at amok.com. If you must, you can email me at Emil, EMIL, at amok.com. The real lanyap comes here at the end. The real lanyap comes where, look, if you've made it this far, I know you need this. I know you're looking for Filipino things to listen to. I know or Asian things that talk to you, that talk about us in real terms. I do this because I can, because I don't go fishing. I look at the newspaper and I say, I got to talk about that. Unlike Rush Limbaugh used to think or say, he would say, oh, well, I'll do this, so I'll tell you what to think. Now, I don't go that far. I don't say I'm going to tell you what to think, but I'm going to tell you what an Asian American thinks. And then you could say, well, is that my Asian American, Emil? Is that the way me as an Asian American can think? Or if you really want to know what does an Asian American think, you can say, oh, yeah, okay, I get it. what does an Asian American think? I mean, that's critical. What does an Asian American think? Oh, I can't even do this. What does an Asian American think? What dad? Yeah, that, you know. So, but if you've made it this far, you know the real benefit of this coming to the end is that this is a time for consoling. It's a time where you know, hey, you're okay. You belong. There's no shame. No shame. Don't hang your head. You know, I looked at all those people on the Zoom room at that Harvard thing, a lot of young people. And, you know, I went decades ago. And it's because of my group. They came up with things like imposter syndrome. They came up things with, you know, all these psychological things because now they had the critical mass of, oh, wow, look, we got numbers. We have real pathologies we've uncovered. And now they can help these young kids and say, hey, look, don't buck up. You can do it. A kind of positive CBT kind of thing. But I mean this. I mean this. If you made it this far, have no shame. You're worthy. You can do it. Hang in there. Head high. In the meta fashion, may you live in safety. May you have health. May you be happy. And may you live with ease. I'm Emil Guillermo. Till next time. Mahal